Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG publisher and freelancer. I'm up at Immortals Inc. tonight, ready to talk some RPGs, and I got Mikey over here with me working the board and chatting.
As always, I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, so I kind of have a predilection for talking about the Cthulhu mythos as far as it goes in RPGs. It's come up once or twice before. In fact, we talked about one specific rule set that I really kind of dig, the Trail of Cthulhu one that uses the Gumshoe engine, published by Pelgrane Press, and Immortals Inc. has a decent selection of products for that. One in particular that I think is really pretty cool. I wanted to talk about that tonight. That's this guy here. It's called the Armitage Files.
Dun dun.
So the whole premise of the Armitage Files, wasn't sure if you're going to give me another beat there.
I was going to dun dun.
Perfect. Is that the player characters came across this crazy compilation of notes and they need to unpuzzle it. And those notes are the last big chunk of this book here, last 30 odd pages. But the cool thing is you can also download those off of Pelgrane's site. In fact, we just did that, and that's where this graphic in the background behind me is coming from.
It was quite complicated, quite encrypted too.
Well, so that's the beauty of it. In order to get that download to work, you need to have a copy of the book. It's kind of like old school encryption where you need materials from the print product in order to decode the electronic version.
They don't play any games.
Well,
in conclusion,
yeah. But I mean, it reminds me of like 1980s software where you needed the manual in order to play the game.
They did that?
Yeah, wow. They totally did. Prevent piracy. Anyway, that was also back in the day before everybody had a PDF of everything.
Before Immortals Inc. podcasts.
Yes, tragically. In here, it's all black and white, but in that PDF, it's full color, and so it's really cool because you can print out your own copy and hand it out to the players page by page as they uncover this information. But I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse here, because the whole thing that's interesting about this is what you do with those handouts. And as you can see, these handouts are not the very meticulous notes of a well-organized person. They're the writings of a lunatic. And the question is, how did this person become a lunatic? Why are they a lunatic? What is it that made them insane? And the Armitage Files is about figuring that out and putting the clues together. And kind of the beauty of the way that Pelgrane and Robin Laws specifically put this whole package together is that there's a lot of different ways to solve it. And the way that your group solves it will not necessarily be the way that any other group of gamers solves it. And there isn't necessarily one right way to solve it. And that's because this isn't designed just as an adventure. It's also designed as a tutorial in how to run role-playing games without a ton of advanced planning. It's a setup for how to kind of run things just by the seat of your pants, reacting to the way players do things, a lot like an improv show. Mike, you ever see improv?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it's hard to watch, if I'm honest. But
all right.
I mean, where do you watch improv? Do you watch improv anywhere locally?
So there used to be a bunch of comedy clubs in the Flats.
Yeah, that's where I went.
To.
That's where I went. This was my first time.
And then there's also, Drew Carey used to do his improv show, which was always, Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, that'd be great. What a time to be alive.
It's all streaming. You can check it out, when you're not playing a game. No, it's not the same. If you ever get a chance to see him live, he puts on a heck of a show too. But a little off track. But
a little bit.
The point of it is that a good game session can be a lot like improv, because you have a lot of what people are doing building off of one another. And Armitage Files does a lot of that, and it gives you a great tool set for doing that kind of improv where you're building off one another and finding clues and creating clues and developing the mystery and solving the mystery as you go. Everybody's starting out with that shared resource, which is those handouts, those files you've recovered, those writings of a madman. And then it's just a question of how that develops. And it being Cthulhu, uncovering those secrets might make you crazy as well. That might offer up a new opportunity for new characters to be introduced. It may bring you into contact with horrifying entities, and some of those are described in here, and some of those you can just pull right out of that main Trail of Cthulhu core rulebook. But in any case, it's a great system for developing that.
Is Cthulhu to blame automatically for this guy's madness?
It might not be Cthulhu specifically, but it's probably at least one of the elder gods or great old ones that have a tie-in to him.
95% chance, you think?
I would say. I think that's a safe bet just based on the kind of clues that are set up in this book and in those handouts. Remember when I talked about Trail of Cthulhu, I talked about how your characters are always going to have access to the clues that they need to solve the mystery. Because based on their skills, if they're in the right place and they have the right skill, they get the clue they need to advance the story. This really leverages that fact so that as your players are going through these materials and investigating them and following up on these notes and these crazy journal entries, they have the opportunity to say, oh, look, I have this skill. I found this clue. That's obviously the next element I need to advance the story. And some of these bits of the documents become more meaningful as the story advances, and it can go in different ways. You can get into all kinds of crazy directions here. There is no lack of possibilities. It's probably not going to be something that's just going to keep you occupied for one night. This is probably something that's going to set up an extended campaign. I would guess ballpark on the short end, you'd be at 6 to 8 game sessions. On the long end, you could probably get a couple of years worth of material out of this one book.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's a lot here, and it's going to depend upon how well your players are willing to build off of one another and riff off of one another and just have fun with the ideas that each player presents.
I don't know if you mentioned this already. Sorry if you did, but what was the setting of this? Was it?
So it's set in the Trail of Cthulhu, a game world, which is kind of the 1930s, pretty much America, but, you know, darker as Cthulhu tends to be, or maybe just the one we know, but the Cthulhu elements, maybe we didn't find out about them.
Okay,
one way or the other.
Basically the same setting as, Trail of Cthulhu in general. And are these files dug up somewhere specifically? So one or more of the characters has connections, probably familial connections, to the person who created the documents. Families with the wacko.
Yeah, craziness definitely runs in family lines traditionally in Lovecraft. And hey, you know, still got my Christmas stuff on, still thinking holidays. Betting a lot of our viewers may have had some recent exposure to family craziness.
I mean, if you didn't, is it normal at that point? I mean, I don't know.
It's a holiday tradition. But if you're looking at building a tradition that builds off of things where maybe the crazy goes a little further, Armitage Files could be just the material you're looking for. A couple of copies are here in stock at Immortals Inc. It is a $33.95 book. With those handout pages, we are talking about 149 pages. All black and white interior art with the color cover. Solid piece of workmanship. Lots of stuff to keep your players occupied and really have a good time and really make you push off those improv muscles and get you really going where you're thinking on your feet as you develop things through this, both for the GM and the players. Solid piece of work. Stop in at Immortals Inc. Check it out on the shelves.
And you know, the one question I'm going to ask you, like every other one of our discussions, was what's the biggest thing you like about this game? What's your biggest pro?
My favorite thing is really the handouts and just the number of ways people can go with them, because I have seen players go in all kinds of different directions from the same material, even when they're at the same table, because different people will look at the same material and go, I think it means this. And the other person will say, no, I think it means this. And that can really open up the possibilities for just some fantastic great gameplay and some great role play.
True, and I like the improvised, aspect of it too. I didn't really know it did that, and obviously it takes some brain power right on the spot. You're put on the spot.
And it's not always brain power. Sometimes it's just willingness to run with it and have fun and maybe enjoy making a fool out of yourself a little bit.
You got to be the hero and you got to be the sacrifice all in one sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure, John.
As always, like and subscribe.
Subscribe.